Is it normal to feel behind at 30 years old? Our 20s was crazy, it was wild, it was questionable. There were things that we had no idea what we were doing. Because when we graduate from high school, no one really teaches us on how we're supposed to live in the real world. Best case scenario, most of us go to universities, colleges. Sometimes people go to the army, but in most cases, I think the idea of the 20s is to figure out who they are as adults. You may have had some love, you may have had some fights, you may have had drinking, all these things that we aren't responsible enough to know going into the 20s. And the 30s is more or less trying to figure out what those lessons were and what it meant to us. You're 30 years old, you've been on this planet for 30 years based on numbers. But just keep living your life. It doesn't really matter what you are doing at 30 years old. Best case scenario, you're improving, you're feeling better, you're doing things that make you feel good. There is no way of getting over the anxiety other than coming to realization that you can't control everything. And money's not going to solve that issue. What does burnout actually feel like? Burnout feels like you have no more energy to do anything, think about anything, or think about yourself. It makes you not want to be responsible anymore. Is it normal to feel behind at 30 years old? Yeah, I do think it's normal to be behind at 30 years old. We just hit the next criteria of life. Our 20s was crazy, it was wild, it was questionable. There were things that we had no idea what we were doing. And that was the point of the 20s. Because when we graduate from high school, no one really teaches us jack shit on how we're supposed to live in the real world as men or people who are no longer educated in this public system. Best case scenario, most of us go to universities, colleges. Sometimes people go to the army, but in most cases, I think the idea of the 20s is for adults, for children to figure out who they are as adults by experiencing all the things that adults already kind of know. Say someone who's in the 30s, late 30s, or 40s, 50s, and up. They've experienced the 20s. They know exactly what the 20s was about. They can instantly remember what the 20s was to them and all the mistakes that happened, all the things that they learned. And they're not mistakes, they're lessons more than anything, but it was something where it was all based off of trial and error. The 20s is trial and error. So when, say, 18 to 24 years old, you experience all these things in school, army, wherever you went in your 18 to early 20s, you experience all these things. You may have had some love, you may have had some fights, you may have had drinking, all these things that we aren't responsible enough to know going into the 20s. And the 30s is more or less trying to figure out what those lessons were and what it meant to us moving forward. When you're 20 years old, there's no such thing as burnout because you really don't know what you're doing. The only time that you'd really feel burnt out if you were trying to do things that you're basically trying to be someone that you weren't. That's the only time you would have felt burnt out. If you were going the route of how you're supposed to live, it wouldn't be burnt out. It'd be all experiences where you could appreciate more than feel that burnout. The burnout comes when life hits you in the face and you feel like you have to be somebody else or be more of a grown-up. And by doing that is you sign up for the jobs, the workspace, the 9-to-5s, the high-octane sales jobs, being a tech bro, sometimes figuring out, just doing a standard 9-to-5 that's paying almost minimum wage. The reason why you're feeling burnt out is because you're doing something you really don't want to do. It hurts because when you're in your 20s, you were doing everything you wanted to do. Best case scenario, you're experiencing things that just felt right at the time. You trusted your gut. And if you think about it, when you're feeling this, am I behind at 30? No, you're not. It's just you think that you should be a lot further than you are because you're comparing yourself to other people. When you're online, social media, YouTube, things like magazines, people you look up to, it's all because you're comparing yourself. You're comparing yourself to other people who they went a different route earlier on than you did. And this is what is being perceived as, like everything is all set. They know what they're doing. They're happy. It's how we're perceiving who we're looking at and comparing us to them. And it's not something that is normal for people. It's not a normal thing. It's normal because most people are comparing themselves to other people. But as humans, we aren't supposed to feel this way all the time. How is Harry so far ahead on this job? How is Sally driving that expensive car? How do they already have 2 kids and a family and a house and everything like that? Like how these are things that we're comparing ourselves to. And the reason why that burn is there is because we think we should be there too. We feel entitled that we should be there too, but we shouldn't be because we didn't put the effort in or the steps to get there. Is it normal to feel behind at 30? Yeah, I think it is. And what is that actually? The question, is it normal? No, it's not normal to even be thinking that way, because you wouldn't be thinking this way if you were comparing yourself to other people. You're 30 years old. That means you've been on this planet for 30 years based on numbers. But just keep living your life. It doesn't really matter what you are doing at 30 years old. Best case scenario, you're improving, you're feeling better, you're doing things that make you feel good. But that's really all it should really be. There's no comparison between you or anybody else. It's between you and your age. If you think that you're doing great at 30 years old, perfect. If you think you're not all the way there, you feel like you should be doing other things, go towards that. Thankfully, at 30 years old, you figured it out. Like, oh, I feel like I should be doing something. That's you trusting your intuition. At 30 years old, oh, I feel that I should be here. Perfect. That's that little step that you need to take to go get it, to go where you want to go. So if it's normal to feel behind 30, I think you know the answer to that. Am I burned out or just unmotivated? Probably unmotivated. You're doing things that you don't want to do. If I have to go to a job every single day and I don't like my boss, I'm unmotivated. I definitely don't want to do the right things that I have to do to get more sales or put my neck out further to satisfy KPIs if I don't even like where I'm going every single day. That's just, yeah, we're just unmotivated, plain and simple. Does money actually reduce anxiety? No, it does not. The saying, more money, more problem, is a real saying, and there's a reason why so many people say it. Anxiety is really you looking into the future and not being assured of something. Anxiety is something where you have that itch or feeling that you don't have control over something. And when you have more money, that means you have more responsibilities. If you are an entrepreneur or a business owner, when you make more money, that means you have more people to deal with, more source of supply, more marketing. That opens up Pandora's box of just losing more, or not having less things that you can control because it's spread out so open. And you got to start trusting people. You got to utilize more managers, more employees, different companies. And anxiety comes from that because the more we spread ourselves too thin, the more we lose control on what we have in front of us. More money also causes anxiety because when you go home and you start looking on social media, magazines, movies and things like that, you feel like you should be there too. And by not being there, it creates that like push. Oh, I got to work harder. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. And then what happens is by the time you do get there, all the things that you haven't really paid attention to in a way, the things that you stuck your neck out in a way or over leveraged yourself, and then it comes back to hit you in a way where it's like, hey, Phil, you still owe these type of things, or hey, buddy, it's time to pay the reaper in a way. You have no way. You have no idea what happened because you weren't yourself. You would think that if you made more money, you could solve more problems. But most cases, the problems that you're trying to solve are things that you've done from the inside. You trying to be someone that you're not. You over leveraging yourself to make more money for unpurposeful things. And when you do make more money, it's just a revolving circle. You just got to make more money to solve this, more money to solve this. How am I going to solve that? There is no way of getting over the anxiety other than coming to realization that you can't control everything. It is what it is. And money's not going to solve that issue. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. I myself, I'm in debt. I think that I could open businesses, make money, and use the profits to pay off the debt that I have in my other business. If you hear that, does that sound like I would have more or less anxiety? Now I have to worry about 2 businesses not making enough money. I have to worry about more workers. I have to worry about all the energy that I'm putting into 2 different things. And now I have no place to put my energy going forward to solve one major problem. Now I got more problems, more people chasing me. More KPIs, more sales, more marketing. Everything's more. So when you make more money, it's great. And sometimes you can leverage that in a way to make everything consolidate into one. But still, the anxiety of now you having to see those people. You go into the mail to see if there's any bills in there. You look at the people you borrowed money from in the past. You still got to see them. There's always this form of like, oh my God, I gotta put a different face on, or I have this great idea that's gonna really help. That's all from anxiety, overcompensation because I messed up in the first place. It's all from Mistakes of integrity. You let your integrity go. Whenever you leave, you lose yourself and you spread your integrity too thin or completely lose it. That creates anxiety. And no money's going to ever solve that. What does burnout actually feel like? What does burnout actually feel like? I don't know about you, but for me, it feels like after a really long conversation, a really hard talk with your shrink. Wow, that's a good question. What does burnout actually feel like? What does burnout actually feel like? Burnout feels like you have no more energy to do anything, think about anything, or think about yourself. It makes you not want to be responsible anymore. It depletes your hope. That's what burnout is. Burnout is something where it's like that the eventual feeling that you just know that this is not for you. Burnout is when you go into a building and you know that you just want to leave and quit because this place is not for you every single day. Burnout is a form of tiredness. It is tiredness, but it's a form of unmotivation because you just know that whatever you're doing at this point in time is just not it. And it's a constant depletion of energy. And you keep replenishing your energy. You do different things. You go do sports. You see your family. You do yoga. These things that give you energy. But the burnout is the instant boom, like the robot turning off. Burnout is you don't want to live anymore. That's what burnout is. It's a feeling that it's hopelessness. That's what burnout feels like. Burnout feels like it's hopelessness. But you'll know what burnout feels like because you'll know that you want to be a better person. They go hand in hand. They really do. If you feel burnout, you kind of really identify what that is. You know exactly what you need to do to change, and you know exactly what it's going to take for you to just be a better person and just feel better. You know exactly what it is. It's the perfect like yin and yang. It's like that clashing, two different oceans, and it's just blah. So burnout's a beautiful thing, and if you do feel burnt out, it's a good time to sit down with it and have the realizations of why you may feel these different feelings, how you got there in the first place, and understand that if you were to do the exact opposite of these things that are burning you out, your life would be a lot better. Why traveling alone changes you, what it was or what is. It starts even when you go to the airport and having that feeling of like the itch of like, whoa, what's going to happen? I don't really know what's going to happen. This feels good. This feels weird. I keep looking at my phone, but I know for a fact this is the right decision. You get to the destination and you see the different sounds. You hear the different sounds. You see the different people. You smell the different air. And right there in itself is your life changing because you've grown up doing, knowing, smelling, seeing all the same things that it's so embedded in you that it's your normal. And the only way you know that it's normal is when you don't travel, when you go to different places because you see the things that aren't normal. And those are the things that test you to put you out of your comfort zone where it's like you're not even able to communicate with people sometimes. Sometimes people speak different languages. Sometimes people are a little bit more pushy. Sometimes people are, they smell. All these things are like, oh my God, it's the word is culture shock. And I remember the first time I moved to Taiwan. I was 19 years old, and it started off with my dad saying, hey, you want an opportunity? There's an opportunity in Taiwan where you can live there for 6 months and you'd be living by yourself. And I said yes off the rip. Like, I was super excited about it, and I was super excited. But the first day when I was in the airplane, it was you were super alert more than actually sleepy. Because you don't know. You're about to step into this new zone. So I know for a fact when I was in the airplane, I was like super like on edge of my seat. And, when I landed, it was quiet. The airport was just dead. There was no people there really. And you hear the Chinese words, the Mandarin in the background. And you just stood there seeing people go by, and you felt very alone. Then I went outside and it was foggy. And there was luckily a car to pick me up with my name on it. That was nice. But I remember that very, very quiet car ride to the apartment that I was going to live in for the next 6 months. And it was just quiet. And you just hear the Chinese music playing in the background. And you're just looking at all the sights, all the lights. And you're kind of on a high. You're on this high where it was a very blissful feeling in a way. There was worries. There was so much worries. But yeah, it was like, there was no worries because you were away from all the things that you knew were issues and problems and things that bothered you, they were no longer there anymore. You're in a completely different country where you're able to be a completely different person. So I pulled up, went to the elevator. It was a little rickety elevator, a lot of bars, I remember, and went up the elevator. And then my room was basically a bed, a bathroom with the toilet, and a shower that didn't have curtains. And it was, you had to step up to the shower, basically. It was like its own like platform. So imagine the bathroom's down here. This is the platform, right? And that's where I showered. There was no shower head that went down. You basically had to use like a little spout to wash yourself. And, you know, when I first took my first shower, the water wasn't hot. It was like lukewarm or cool to lukewarm. And that was kind of like my first like, whoa, this is different than my standard hot showers that I took way too much here in America. But that was probably one of the most empowering feelings I've ever had, was to experience all these feelings, smells, the tingles, the sounds, the looks, the everything all at once. And it was like very empowering because I knew that because I took that step, that 18-hour, travels to get there, everything, it was all for me. I'm putting myself in a position where I was able to feel uncomfortable and see who I was as a person. Was I set up? Did I have the tools to be able to survive? And you'll find out that you do have all the tools to survive in any situation. And when you get out of it after the 6-7 months, you have a whole different perspective on how you can approach things here when you come back to your normal life. I would implore people, or I would overtell people, to go onto Google Travels, go to Priceline.com, type in a country that really interests you, and push the button and go. It will be the greatest thing that you ever do. You will never stop traveling. Once you do take that one trip, you'll never stop traveling. You'll automatically know that high that you get. And it's not just a high. It's all new lessons that you're going to learn that's going to make you a better person. Someone who you could talk to further. You have now more things you could talk to people about. Makes you a little more interesting. You experience more adventure because you took that one step to buy that ticket. So why does traveling alone changes you? It's impossible for it not to. Why do I feel more myself outside of my home country? I think you'd be surprised that, our home country, it's cool and all. It's super comfortable. Our family and friends are there, but there's a lot more out there than what we know as where we live. My grandfather always said, your home is where you're born. It's where you live and where you die. And that's something that really bothered me because I feel like that was a crock of shit. It was something that was, and this is someone who traveled. He had over 2 million miles traveled before he died. So he traveled a lot. And now that I'm thinking about it a little further, he may be right on the death part. It'd be nice. But what was the question? But you feel more of yourself when you leave your home country because you are yourself. You don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to be put in that corner that when you wake up, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your workers, your classmates, everyone, they're not there anymore. You don't have to put those fake masks on. You don't have to put these things on to please people anymore. You could be in a different country with a whole different realm of people and react the way you have to react because that's who you are internally. When we're home here in the States, or when we're home in our hometown, we put up so many masks on to please people. If I'm pleasing him, I'm pleasing her, I'm pleasing them, I'm pleasing so many different people. I don't even know who I am, right? How could anyone be able to understand that who they are internally is not being shown when they're at their home? It's very, very it's the best feeling in the world when you start realizing that you are yourself in your home, but you're not going to be able to feel that until you go somewhere else and see what you're made of in a way. So when you travel to different countries, different states, different towns, you are put in situations where your survivor self in a way comes out. And the survivor self that comes out is someone who filtrated all the tools that they've learned doing things, and they're able to use them in these situations. And when you're in a survivor mode in a way, your idea of getting directions because you have to figure out how to get to your hotel. You have to figure out the ways by just trying to survive. having that feeling in the backbone, like, ah, man, if I don't ask that person over there, I really don't think I'm gonna be able to get home. If I don't ask someone something, I may not ever get home, right? I don't know where the hotel is. I don't know how to eat. I don't know how to speak to these people. All these things that make us feel uncomfortable, we have to get really creative in a way. And the creativity comes from who we are internally, because we already know half the stuff that we need to do to survive. We utilize our friends and our family to do it for us because it's easier. It makes our lives easier just to have other people do it. But when you're out in a different world, you have no choice but to do it yourself. And it's empowering. It's super empowering to have that feeling of, wow, I guess I do know what I'm doing. I can survive in this world. And when you do that for so long, eventually you turn into that person, right? But then when you come back home, you'll start seeing, okay, well, these people really don't know what the hell they're talking about. They really didn't do these type of things that, they're all just in their world. And I was just putting myself in this box of a person that when they do see me, I'm that box of that person, right? But when you're traveling, you can be anybody you want. You could be that quirky American, or that super intellectual French dude, or you could be anyone, man. That's the cool part about it, because you could be anyone, but really that's just gonna be you. I'm a super quirky guy who likes to try new things and eat duck. That's who I am. So yeah, I think the best way to even figure out who you are as a person is to travel 1000% by yourself. It would be the best feeling in the world. It's the most liberating feeling in the world. And go to that website, go find the country that interests you, and buy the ticket. Why does going home feel harder than leaving when traveling? Because why the hell you want to go home? we want to see our friends and family for a little bit, but we are able to create our true self life when we travel to different areas, different towns, different cities, different countries. We choose what we want to do. We choose the activities that we want to do, how we want to make money, who we want to meet, how we talk to people. It's all choice, because we can be not judged. Yes, maybe sometimes it's easier when people don't understand what we're saying. They speak a different language. But you have the choice to step out and communicate the way you want to communicate to get what you want. And when you do that for a long period of time in these places, when you go home, the instant you get home, when your mom says no, you get back into that feeling, right? So nobody wants to go back. Why would you want to go back to that feeling? It's not a good feeling to be put in that box. I also think that when we know that we have a lot more responsibilities where we live, like our home, whether we're an older brother, an older sister, we have a certain position and job, we feel that pressure again, the pressure to perform in a way where people know how we perform, whether it's good or bad. But when you travel, you can perform at the exact speed that you want, with the motivation that you want, and there's no pressure doing it. There's no pressure other than you have to survive. You have to thrive, and you have to live. That's just what it is. You don't have to answer to anybody else but yourself. So when you go home, I think the problem is us not setting those boundaries up to say, no, I don't want to live like this anymore. No, I don't want to work like this anymore. I want to work like this. I have motivation doing that. So, no, mom and dad, I'm going to do that. And that's the power that comes from travel. So, find a ticket and go travel. All right. Like and comment below and subscribe. Hey, if you like this, subscribe. Click the button. Subscribe, like and subscribe.